The thing with stories is that most of us know how they are going to end even before we start reading or watching them. We see the title, we look at the cover, we read the first line, and we already have an idea of how it's going to go. This is especially true when it comes to fairy tales and fictional stories. We know that in the end, good will triumph over evil, that the prince will marry a princess, that the wicked stepmother will get what's coming to her, and so on. Sometimes this predictability can be comforting, like a warm blanket on a cold night. But sometimes it can also be frustrating, like when you're trying to watch a horror movie and you just know that the final girl is gone, survive no matter what. But there are some stories that defy our expectations, stories that keep us guessing until the very end. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite examples of this, the ending of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Now, if you've read the book or seen the movie, you know that the ending is both epic and tragic. We lose some of our favorite characters, but in the end, good triumphs over evil. But what if I told you that Tolkien almost ended the story very differently? What if Gandalf had died in the Battle of Helm's Deep? Or what if Aragorn had chosen to remain in the shadows and not claim the throne of Gondor? Well, today we're going to do just that. We've gone explore some alternate endings for The Lord of the Rings and see how they might have changed the story. Now, before I continue, I just want to say that these are just my own personal headcanons, and I'm sure that there are already tons of fanfics out there that explore these ideas in more depth. But I'm curious, what do you think? How would this story have been different if Gandalf or Aragorn had made a different choice at the end of the book or movie? Let's start with Gandalf. In the original story, Gandalf plays a pivotal role in the Battle of Helm's Deep, inspiring the men of Rohan to fight back against Saruman and his army of Uruk-hai. But Gandalf doesn't actually have to be there. In fact, he was only able to attend the battle because he used an ancient trick to escape from Saruman's tower. So what if Gandalf hadn't escaped and instead died at the hands of Saruman? Without Gandalf's wisdom and guidance, the Rohirrim might have lost the battle and fallen to Saruman's forces. This would have had major consequences for the entire story. For one, Aragorn would have had a much harder time gathering allies to his cause. With Rohan out of the picture, Gondor would have been left to face Sauron's forces alone. Even with the help of the Entwives, I don't think that Aragorn would have stood much of a chance in that scenario. And Frodo's mission to destroy the One Ring would have likely failed, resulting in Sauron's victory and the enslavement of all free peoples. But let's move on to something a little more hopeful. What if Aragorn had refused to claim the throne of Gondor? In the books, Aragorn is hesitant to take the throne because he doesn't want to be a burden to the people of Gondor. He feels that he's not worthy of their loyalty, and that he'd rather live out his days as a ranger of the North. Now, in the movies, they kind of glossed over this part of Aragorn's character. But in the books, it's a significant internal conflict for him. But what if Aragorn had followed through with his initial desire and stayed away from the politics of Gondor? Well, in that case, the throne would have most likely gone to Faramir, the second son of Denethor. Now, Faramir might not have been as skilled a leader as Aragorn, but he was a good and noble man who I think would have done his best to lead Gondor to victory. However, without Aragorn's military skills and strategic mind, Gondor might have fared worse in the war against Sauron, and once again, Frodo's mission would have been in jeopardy. So, those are just two alternate endings to The Lord of the Rings that I've been thinking about a lot recently. But let me know what you think. How would the story have been different if Gandalf or Aragorn had made a different choice at the end of the book or movie? Also, are there any other characters whose decisions you think could have changed the outcome of the story? And finally, do you think that these kinds of alternate endings are fun to think about, or do they just make you appreciate the original story even more? I'll see you next week.